Welcome to Beacon Bits. I'm your co-host, Serge Boudreau, and every episode I will be joined by my co-host, Yves Boudreau. We delve into the world of work from the employer and employee viewpoint. Kick back, relax, and let's talk work. Beacon Bits starts right now. Welcome to Beacon Bits, the place where we talk about all things work. I'm Serge, joined by Yves. Yves, looking sharp as usual.
Depends on your definition of sharp. I thought you might come up with a tagline to start the show.
Yeah, should I? Should we
No.
brainstorm a new tagline? No.
So, also, before we continue on, we should make sure that I'm not talking to your AI twin. So I'm going to do a little test here.
Hey.
What was your previous title at Career Beacon?
Vice President of Business Development.
Oh, wow.
So now I got you. Am I the AI version of Serge that can actually say words correctly?
Look at that. Actually, what's the word that you use when someone does really well at something?
Successful. Successful.
Okay, good. I am talking to the real Serge.
You got me. Did I not get that right?
No.
Okay.
Somehow you're the only person that I know that doesn't use the C's in successful.
How do I say it?
Successful.
Your
C's are S's. Well, at least I know I'm talking to the real Serge.
You are talking to the real Serge. I'm live and in person, and I survived being in Las Vegas, jumping from a building.
I'm proud of you that you did that, by the way.
Are you proud? It was pretty exhilarating, quite scary. For the folks that haven't seen the video, if you follow me on LinkedIn, you can probably see it as at the Strat Hotel. It's a large towers and they have a rappelling, but it's not really rappelling. You're free falling at 45 miles an hour. It wasn't that scary when you're actually jumping, but extremely scary when you're up. So, Yves, I'm going to ask you that question. What's the scariest thing you've ever done like that?
The scariest thing that I've ever done? Jesus, that's a good question.
Have you ever jumped out?
Oh, I know what it is. Actually, I know exactly what it is.
Okay.
I went scuba diving, hungover. When my wife and I get married in Punta Cana, I took a course from a guy who was smoking weed for about 30 minutes in a pool before they took us out scuba diving. And one of our friends was actually like an experienced diver. And so for whatever reason, something got lost in translation that they thought we were all experienced divers. And my first dive was around 50 feet, which is actually insane. And I was so stressed out and I was so nervous that I ended up puking in my mask. And if you don't know, there's actually a button. If you're sick on the water, there's a button on your breather that'll eject everything that's in. But the 30-minute course that we had in the pool did not cover that. So I actually had to figure out how to clear my mouth because I couldn't breathe. I thought I was going to die.
Oh my God.
So finally, I flipped the mask open and all the food came out and literally got attacked by about 100 fish. I have a picture of it. I'll show it to you someday. But I loved it so much for that 10 minutes there was peace and quiet that I am now a certified scuba diver with over 50
Oh, interesting. Because the question I was going to ask you, did you ever do it after? And I guess the answer is yes, because I got that question several times of, would you jump again? And my answer is probably not unless I'm getting paid. Did it once. I'm cool. I'll never jump out of a plane.
That was going to be
I will never scuba dive. I'm not a good enough swimmer. So that's just me.
You don't need to be a good swimmer to scuba dive, by the way.
No, but
it's a different conversation for a different day. It's the closest thing you and I will ever be able to do that doesn't involve going into space because it's the most peaceful thing you could do, honestly.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
But I still can't convince me. But let's jump into something that is scary for a lot of folks, AI in the workplace. So we want to focus this conversation on how employees are leveraging AI. And I'll give you a couple of stats. Obviously, we all know that Microsoft really involved in AI. We heard the stories about OpenAI and their interactions and how they're involved with them. A large research that they did, and I want to point out a couple of stats that came out. So they asked employees, are you using AI in your workplace? And we're talking about knowledge workers and we're talking about global. So 75% of global knowledge workers are using generative AI at work. I think that number is extremely high. 78% bring their own AI tools to work, and 79% of leaders recognize the competitive need for AI, but 60% see a lack of vision and plan for AI implementation. So just in those three stats, the one that was interesting, 75% of global knowledge workers are using some type of generative AI. I'm not seeing that.
I laughed a little bit when you shared the stats with me, especially the one where they're bringing their own AI tools, like they're showing up at work with their little lunchbox full
New
of
little
AI tools.
toolbox. Here's my AI
Just to
toolbox.
clear. Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm not as shocked or surprised by those numbers.
No?
It's also a little bit biased. Like you said, it's knowledge workers, it's knowledge industry. If you get a survey that's asking you today if you use AI, like you're going to say yes, but do you truly use AI? Do you use it to its full potential, or do you just dabble with it? Like everyone's going to say yes, or the majority of people are going to say yes. I'm not surprised. I mean, I see it in our own team. It's probably 75% of the team does actively use it in their day to day.
How do you feel as a CEO? How do you feel about the employees using AI in the workplace?
I wanted to make the distinction between using AI for personal use cases of getting better at productivity or finding ways to be more efficient with some of the repeatable tasks versus using AI for our own company as a way to enhance our tools and enhance our services, understand our data more. How do I feel about using it as a company? AI is table stakes. Like we have to. If we don't, whether the products that are coming out now are legit or are credible or not, whether there's moral dilemmas around it, there's going to be new incumbents in our space that are going to come up because they're just aggressively using it, leveraging it in all the possible ways. For everyone on my team, because I care about not only how they contribute to our company, I care about what it means for their own futures, what it means for their own careers. And so I advocate for them to know more about AI, especially in their own disciplines, than me going to them saying, hey, have you tried this tool? This might be beneficial for you. So I would love to see a little bit more active engagement on a personal level, because at the end of the day, like this isn't going to be a company that people are going to necessarily retire at. Maybe, who knows?
Maybe.
But this is a company that is going to create opportunities for a lot of people in this team where they might go on to something else. And I'd be a bit fearful for some people if they haven't invested in using that in their toolkits.
Well,
But
and that's why I'm surprised that 75%, because I haven't seen that personally. And I've seen that like at Career Beacon, it's a small team. If you're looking at large organizations, how are they leveraging it? Do they understand how they can leverage it and can make their life so much easier? And I'll give you the example. I do a bunch of podcasts and researching topics, and I'm reading the articles and I'm trying to highlight the key points. I basically put the link in ChatGPT and like recap the key bullet points of this article, and literally something that would take me maybe an hour is now taking me 5 minutes to prep for a show. There is so much efficiency. But the question is, how much is too much efficiency? I know that sounds weird, and you're a CEO and you want to drive efficiency, and I can see the advantage of it, but are we losing that creative aspects that we've used to have?
I think there's one foot in each side of that dilemma. One is, I actually truly believe. I'll give you an example of how we use AI here, and it's really just scratching the surface of it. But customer success or customer support, depending on what organizations use, is one of the areas that AI is having an immediate impact. So we switched platforms this year. We went from Freshdesk to Intercom with the goal of providing a better experience for our customers. While we were able to export over, I don't know, like 10,000 plus tickets over the last few years that had been submitted to Freshdesk. And then we were able to feed those into our own GPT. Then we were able to extract the most common requested types so that we can create content, and we can also be able to answer those questions with consistency in the future and provide articles to support those questions. And by doing that, then we free up the time of people in the team here, like Olivia, who generally handles a lot of those, whereas now she can go and and spend time in other ways outside of just answering the same question over and over again. What's the
Yeah.
price? Like those types of like common questions. And there's a ton of other examples like that. So yes, the creativity side of it, especially like my background is design. So I've done product design for the majority of my life. I have conflicting feelings about what it means to generate everything through AI in the future, from creatives for advertising to website design to actual video production to all of those things. Like I do feel that we'll feel a bit soulless in the future. I'm sure you saw the recent Apple ad that did not go well.
Yes.
That was the first kind of sign. This is not something that people are excited about.
The use case of AI and how it's been used, because you got to think we're a year and a half in. Obviously, AI has been around for a long time, but when OpenAI came, it kind of opened up a new space. I think there's been some really good things, but we've gone the other way when it comes to content creation. Because what you're seeing right now is go on LinkedIn, everything you're getting right now feels like Gen AI and it's
I know.
losing its soul completely. And you can tell. And this is where I think AI in our space is going to kill business development in the traditional ways that we've used it before. Did I say it right? I got it right. No, I didn't get it right. Okay. Business development. But you
Yeah.
think about all the emails that I'm getting in now from vendors trying to sell, it definitely feels AI. I think they're using it in the wrong way. And I know how now you can, instead of creating one piece of content, you can
Yeah.
create 50. The quality is way down. And I think it actually hurts you as a brand just putting out garbage. Feels like
Yeah.
garbage.
I have, on a personal level, I still have a hard time putting something out there that doesn't feel like me. I don't
Yeah.
compromise when it comes to what I do and how I show up. And so everything I post, I don't use AI right now. I'll use it sometimes on things if I'm writing something for the company. But if I'm using it personally and I'm communicating with people I've met over the years or my social audiences, I feel like I'm almost cheating them in some way by using AI. And so I haven't made that leap, but I have seen the same thing you have seen, the same kind of blandness. But I also don't think that's really what AI, like these are
No.
just like scratching the surface. There's some legit cases of, I don't know if you saw the doctor, I believe it was in Spain, that just did an operation using an Apple Vision Pro.
No, I
Um,
didn't see it, but
and as he's operating, he can see the scans of the person he's operating on. He can zoom in with more precision on some of the procedures that he's doing. Those are the real exciting use cases of AI for the future, where like early detection of cancer, early detection of diseases, like that's the stuff that I'm excited about. Like these productivity improvements that we see now, yes, I think some of it's good, but I also think it's going to be overkilled in terms of, I'm already seeing it. Companies like, hey, we need to add AI to our business. We need to start using AI. I need to find someone who knows AI. They don't even really know where they want to start, but they just want to start somewhere.
I agree. And it's interesting because we're seeing different companies. I think there's a different world for small than if we look at large enterprise, they're discouraging it. To give you an example of a particular use case that you could leverage Gen AI. Say you're a contract analyst, you could actually put your full contract in and find the key points that we should be looking at, where are the risks, but you're putting your contract in ChatGPT. That data is now in ChatGPT, which I understand why companies wouldn't want to do that. And this builds the case for building your own models
Mm-hmm.
internally for companies so you can leverage it for things like that. Because imagine the time saving for a large enterprise for someone that's going to spend 8 hours on a contract and they can now look at it in 10 to 15 minutes. What's your thoughts about that? Because there's OpenAI, if you look at all the models, it's based on a ton of information on the internet that's just been gathered. But yeah, you can't use it. How do you feel about companies training their own models internally? Do you think that's going to happen a lot?
Yeah, I think so. It's going to be primarily knowledge companies first, but I think it will happen. It has to. For a lot of those companies, it's table stakes, as we mentioned earlier. They have to do it or else they're not going to be able to survive. I read a stat in a recent Mercer report that similar to the numbers of people engaging with AI now, I think like 65+% of companies are fearful of AI, how it impact their businesses in the next
Yeah.
5 years. And the reason I think these are legit concerns, if we backtrack a little bit with the emergence of internet. Some of our listeners, viewers may not remember those days, but you and I were right in the middle of it when the
Yeah.
internet became accessible. I still remember the first almost like 5 to 10 years of companies just not seeing the value of even having a website. Oh, why do I need a website? Like I've never needed a website before, thinking it was going to be a fad.
Yeah.
When smartphones came out, all these websites that had been finally created for desktop versions of the internet now weren't mobile friendly because they were like, oh, no one's going to buy things on the phone or navigate my website off of their phone. But you don't see that level of pushback from companies today. Like companies aren't going, no one's ever going to use AI. Those conversations
No,
are not happening right now.
that's true.
So that's why I believe that it's going to be very different this time around. Because one, it's generally very inexpensive for a company to start embracing AI right away. The skill sets are not as easily attainable as they might think, but you can retrain people on your team to start using AI. They don't need to go to university for 4 or 5 years to figure out how to leverage it efficiently. So there's just all of these things that weren't necessarily the case with previous technology jumps. So
I agree with that. I think you can jump in really quickly if you start understanding it. They made it really user friendly, especially ChatGPT. So anyone can do it. But the ones that are really good at it are using it a lot and start to understand prompts and how you get enhanced information by just asking the right questions. And someone told me that the skill of the future is being able to ask the right questions because that's how it's going to be based, right? Everything you're doing is asking the right questions.
Peter Thiel, who we talked about earlier offline, he recently was in an interview and he suggested that people are thinking about their education, consider going into philosophy in university versus going into anything math related or anything computer programming, because from his perspective, your ability to have philosophical differences with AI and to be able to debate with AI as far as what is the best path forward on anything is what's going to make you stand out from the ones who, because most people will just take it for granted as, oh, well, if AI says this, this must be the right thing to do. So I thought it was an interesting take, and I didn't think it was completely as out of line as it might seem.
No, I agree with that take. I want to talk about something else. I want to talk about an article that I read recently that when we talk about AI, we're hoping about efficiency, right? We want to do more work in less time. And the report here says that if companies are using AI correctly, we could see 4-day work week become normalized
Yeah.
because you can do the amount of work in 32 hours instead of 40, 45. I don't know if that's the case because I think about, yes, you're going to become more effective, but then don't you want more output as well? Is the goal actually for people to work less? I don't think companies are going to see it that way. I think that's wishful thinking from people in the workforce. I don't know.
I've seen the same conversations happening. I forget the name of it's the owner of the New York Mets. I think he spearheaded it, and then mostly all billionaires all jumped on it afterwards.
What do they think?
Same thing. They think the 4-day work week is going to be a reality because of AI, and they honestly, like, it could be. But for me, the 4-day work week it's not just AI. There's so many other things that almost everyone needs to agree that 4-day work week is the way to go, because depending on the type of business you have, like some will be 4-day work week, some of the 5-day work week, and it's just like adjusting to all that. I'm sure it's possible. And at the end of the day, today, I'm running a company, and as a CEO, I probably shouldn't be saying this, but I would love to see society be able to go towards a 4-day work week because we spend so much of the healthiest part of our lives working.
Yeah.
And so if there's a little bit of room there for, but it is a tough thing. It's indoctrinated in us for over a
Well,
century now.
well,
Well, more than one century.
the Industrial Revolution, and we're talking about the 1920s, the 5-day work week started then. We're
Yeah.
over a century, and I like the world has changed. To go a little bit deeper, Elon Musk thinks that in the future, you'll have the choice if you want to work or not. Universal basic income is going to become the norm because literally most of the work will be done with AI, obviously a way more advanced AI than we have now. I don't know
I
if that's good for society. First of all, I don't think it's good for society because I think people need something. They need a purpose. we all need a purpose, right? But I don't know. I don't.
I don't know if I can swear on this podcast, but I fucking hate these blanket, like, universal basic income will fix everything. I feel it's such a cop out, because the people that are saying those things in a lot of ways are the people that are benefiting the most. It's like, oh, don't worry about this. Like, all this AI stuff is going to be great. And then people who don't have jobs, they'll still be able to eat. But that's not what people want.
No,
Like, sure, is there a scenario where universal basic income makes sense? Probably. But does it only make sense because there's no opportunities for those individuals? Because that's not the solution. Like, you're going to have a bunch of depressed people who don't have a sense of purpose. And then all of a sudden, people don't want to just have enough money to eat. That's not living. That's not life.
I don't think we're geared. I think humans are geared to be active. They're geared to have a purpose. It sounds great in theory, right? Because you're like, I'm going to be on the beach every day and make this amount of money, but you're just killing innovation in some ways. You're killing drive. You're killing people wanting to be exceptional and to go above. And I don't think we want to discourage that. So,
But you also add to the like the culture right now, the instant gratification, the lack of patience that's happening right now in everyone. Everyone wants everything in bullet points. No one wants to watch like full length. How many like movies do you sit through without looking at your phone at the same time as you're looking at your laptop? Unless you're at the movie theater, which it's worse and worse with the younger generations coming into, not just in the workforce, but just into society. So yeah, if I look back at like even social media, which I have actually more hate love. I wouldn't even say love hate. I'll say hate love relationship.
yeah.
I understand. I love the fact that you can still stay connected. I know what's happening with parts of my family. And sure, people can say, well, pick up the phone and call them and stay in touch, but it's just not how we're wired anymore. But I also feel that it's not a thing that has been good. Like, I don't think it's been a net positive for society.
I think it's been a net negative, and having 3 young daughters that are going to be going into their teenage years in the next decade, it scares me. It scares me because Instagram's the perfect example. Pictures are amazing, right? Everything looks great. Is that the reality of the person? Probably not. So everyone's living to try to fill a void that's like not really there, and it's causing stress, anxiety, and it goes to the point of where we were talking in the green room before recording. I think people are more unhappy than they've
Yeah.
ever been. And I think social media is a big reason why.
I have on my remarkable tablet, which I highly recommend. I love this thing. But anyway, a lot of people probably don't know this report exists, but it's called the World Happiness Report. It's been around for a long time.
Never heard of
Um,
it.
no, and I'm going to do a deeper dive in it because I was just fascinated by just how much like insights they had. Basically, they've been tracking the level of happiness that people have had over the years. But the impact on happiness is basically there's different drivers. So there's low drivers, average, and then the high drivers. The highest driver on happiness is feeling loved. That's going to sound fluffy here. I
I
love you.
love you. I love you.
But it is. At the end of the day, no
Yeah,
matter what, it's
yeah.
feeling love. The second and third and so on is having a sense of purpose, a job, financial security, family, friends. But if you don't have a sense of purpose, if you don't have a sense of financial security, which gives you the confidence that you need to be out in the world and to have the opportunities in a lot of ways that everybody else has, then yeah. So in the last 12 years, average happiness in the world has gone down 20%. There's been some exception where some countries it's gone up,
Yeah.
and some parts of the world has gone down. Latin America has gone up in the last few years, which is interesting,
Okay.
while the Western countries has continuously gone down. I think Canada was down like 6 points over the previous year. And if you think of what's been going on in Canada over the last few years with high inflation, people struggling, employment rates going up, all of those things, then it kind of makes sense. But the other stat that I thought was even more interesting was the happiness report, depending on the age you were born. So the level of happiness goes down
Yeah.
every year after 1980. The interesting part is that happiness reports go up for anyone who's born before 1965. So our parents, grandparents. And I see it. And I have a hypothesis. I don't think I'm going to win a Nobel Prize for this research that I just shared.
The Pulitzer Prize. No, that's right. Okay. Yeah, that
Some
shows
type
you.
of prize. I don't think
Yeah,
anyone's
we don't
winning an
even
award.
know the prizes, so I'm sure we'll never be qualified to win any of
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I'm not adding PhD to the end of my name anytime soon.
them.
But I do think if I look at my parents who were born in the 50s, they didn't grow up on hooked in technology. And as you get older, you also give a little bit less of a shit of things like status and what other people think about
Yeah.
you. So I think that's also factors in. I can't back it up. I'm sure there's more research out there. I'll bring more data points for our next conversation.
It seems right. But I was just thinking about this, and I look at the generations and I look at my parents being on a plane last night with two older ladies. And before we took off, they were on Facebook the whole time. I think that generation is online more than we know and think. And the amount of time they spend on Facebook is probably the same how like teenagers are using Instagram, TikTok, or whatever the case is. So you might be right, but I'm not sure I'm seeing that. I think they're using social media way more, but they're using it in a different context. Like for teenagers, there's a body image, there's different things
Mhm.
that really concerns them. I think for older people, it's just a new way to gossip. It's a new way to figure out what's going on with other people's lives. So it doesn't affect their happiness as much as a teenager that's posting pictures and taking it down if they don't get 20 likes within 10
Yeah.
minutes. Like it's a whole vicious circle of just wanting acceptance from other people. So now I'm thinking about it. Yeah, I think you're right.
Well, the next question is I don't know the name of the product off the top of my head. There's a product you must have seen in the ads that get professional AI headshots for your LinkedIn profile. So that company generated $7 million last year.
Pro shots, I think it's called. There's a couple. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you think about all of the things that you mentioned, the challenges with being judged and on the photos and all of those things, add AI to the mix, right?
Mm.
Are your kids going to, because they don't feel that they're pretty enough and they're going to want everything to be perfect? Like I see more and more people using AI to generate AI profiles of themselves on LinkedIn because you add that to the mix, it just doesn't feel right. Again, at the end of the day, I love technology. I've been fortunate enough to spend time in technology and outside of it, and I leverage it all the time, every day. But I do feel like it's being irresponsibly rolled out. Every time there's been a big jump, what people don't realize, the companies who benefit the most, the number goes down every single time
Yeah.
because they just get absorbed. So when the internet became a thing, like the companies who didn't adapt quickly enough got bought out by other companies who were using the technology more efficiently, and it was too late, so just got bought or swept under the rug. And then when e-com became a thing, same thing. All these businesses who decide, hey, we're not going to sell on the internet, a lot of them got absorbed. So less and less companies.
Mm.
The thing with AI for me that concerns me is this is actually the first time that the larger companies have a clear advantage out of the gate because they have the data. Like they can make decisions really quick. They can alternate their product, alternate their services, adapt to the changing needs. Where that used to be an advantage for the small businesses because they could maneuver a lot quicker than these large behemoths. I don't know that that's going to be true anymore.
You bring up a really good point, but it's not only the data. What the massive advantage these companies have, say the FANGs, is they have the chips and they have the ability to buy the chips. And that applies to everything. It applies to what they can actually bring out to the market, but also in the talent they can acquire. If I'm working in AI, do I want to go work for a startup that doesn't have the computing power that Meta would have or Google or whatever the case is? Yeah, it's a huge competitive advantage. And that's a deep concern. That
Yeah.
is because it's going to be monopolizing. God knows they're going to control what can be put out there at the pace that they want, which sucks. It sucks for a lot of smaller companies that we're not going to see the innovation because there is a huge barrier of entry. I have no clue how much the chips are, but I'm assuming the NVIDIA chips and the size and the scope of what companies need, the cost must be insane, right?
Oh yeah. So it's also the reason it's the most valuable company in the world now.
Yes, true.
Like
Good point.
like Nvidia and everyone thought as Nvidia is just this little company that creates video cards for gamers, but no, they're literally the company now that makes the world go around in some ways. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. Like, I don't want to be all doom and gloom. I don't think that was the goal with this podcast, was just to kind of make people realize that for me, when I have conversations right now with employers, I feel like we have an inside lens as to what's going on that most of them still don't. And
Yeah.
I just want to get everyone aware that don't sleep on this.
No.
Like, this is legit. There's almost no business right now that can say that they're not going to be impacted by AI. And if it's not a regular conversations in your day to day and within your team, you're already way behind and you get some catching up.
Yeah, you can't put your head in the sand with this. And what's the saying is AI is not going to take your job, but someone that understands and can work with AI will replace your job. And I do believe that. The thing is, it's not that hard. Like to start leveraging tools like ChatGPT, using it on a daily basis, it's going to help you in the long run because the data is pretty clear. The power users are the ones that has started using it slowly, but on a daily basis. And now they have a huge advantage over people that are not leveraging it, right? And they have an advantage in the marketplace. And it goes to what we said, I think, in the middle of the podcast, where they are starting to understand what are the right questions to ask and how to ask it. So it's not a doom and gloom, but I think we want to encourage everyone to do their own research, dig into it. But I am concerned about exactly all the same things you are. I'm concerned about deep fakes. I'm concerned about all of those things. What is going to be real news and what is actually out there that didn't happen and can be recreated? But I think that's the topic for another show. So on that note, that's another episode of Beacon Bits.
I'm going to throw a little plug for, I could plug our own podcast, right? Yeah, year one. We did it this last year. We partnered with East Coast Lifestyle. We changed the format a little bit this year, but we're partnering again with East Coast Lifestyle, which is one of the most iconic companies in planet Canada right now, along with Wilson's, to bring back the 25,000 anniversary. The goal is to help students who are entering that first year of post-secondary education. And we have 10 bursaries of $2,500 each. So if you have kids that are entering their first year of education, or if you are listening and somehow you're a young person enough that is tuning into this show right now and can qualify, go to year-1.ca. It's a really simple application process, and hopefully you'll be one of the winners this year.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a massive audience of young folks listening to this show. I'm sure we're competing directly against TikTok, but great initiative.
We surveyed our audience to see what the average age is.
We're going to wait till we hit the 1 million downloads, and I'll share all the numbers on that end. But
a few more weeks.
I love that Career Beacon is doing that. And also, I'm hoping an AI robot wins the bursary. So that would be amazing.
Yeah, no, that would not be amazing.
On that note, Yves, another episode of brilliance from me. You were okay.
Thanks. Oh, wow.
We appreciate everyone listening. Have a fantastic week.